Businesses and governments are both grappling with how to pull social media giants into line. New Zealand companies have been pulling ads from social media sites, leading to an ad boycott after Facebook's live stream of the New Zealand mosque shooting.
Well, how effective will this be in bringing about change, and what is the decision-making going on behind closed doors? So we've got Taking Stock tonight with Stephen Shearer, the digital CEO, also former Facebook Australia CEO, and John Winning is with us, CEO of Winning Group and founder of Appliances Online. Welcome to you both, Stephen and John. Thank you. John, I want to start with you because you do advertise on Facebook. So how have you digested the last few days and what have you been talking about?
I guess personally, there's very few things that keep me up at night other than probably ideas and things that are going on at work. And I was away for a friend's wedding on the weekend, and when I heard about this and, you know, someone in the group was watching the video and I sort of had walked over and watched it and didn't even know what I was seeing. Yeah. And all of a sudden you realise what you're seeing. I was like, turn this off, this is shocking. And I was appalled. Distracted by what's going on in the day, it hadn't really sunk in. But then I went to bed that night and I was up for hours, you know, personally thinking about how someone could have so much hatred to do something like that. You know, put that into a business sense. And as a business, I didn't know where the video was being shared. I think people were saying it was originally Facebook Live, then people took that and put it on a website live leak, and then it was on YouTube, and they were trying to get it down. YouTube, obviously owned by Google. These are big advertising platforms. From our point of view, if this was a Channel 9 News, a Channel 7 News, a Channel 10 News, could we take our advertising off? That would be really easy. If it was my dad and in his time running a Winning Appliances business where Facebook advertising would be less than a single percentage of what gives you your revenue and your advertising, it would be an easy outcome. For most traditional businesses to pull their ads, small businesses or even some of the large traditional businesses to pull ads off Facebook would be an easy decision. But for a pure play online retailer, where almost 50% of our digital advertising spend is predominantly on social media platforms, and a big majority of that being on Facebook, we have 4,000 Facebook likes and fans that we communicate with every day. For us to pull our Facebook advertising would probably almost destroy our business. I would be letting off probably over 100 of our team members because of the drop in the revenue and the business that we would have. Less delivery, so delivery drivers would lose their job. Less phone calls, so our customer support team would lose their jobs. If I then went and took that to cut our Google advertising, because Google owns YouTube and YouTube we're also running the video, I would probably have 80% of my advertising spend that I would not be spending. We do return on investment advertising, so I can't go and take that 80% of my spend and just go and put that into traditional advertising media, of which, mind you, we've advertised on I think it was Channel 7 News in the past when they ran a segment on African gangs in Melbourne, and we got hate mail, we got people boycotting our services, there were trolls online talking about how no one should ever shop at Winning Appliances because they advertise on Channel 7 News. We don't know what stories they're going to run, and for us at that point in time, just to basically hush some of the noise that was being created, we pulled our ads from Channel 7 News, and we said, you know what, it's just too risky for us. Not because I believe that the people that were saying this were right, it was just too much of a distraction versus the reward we were getting from being on news programs.
This isn't going to collapse because you pull that advertising.
Correct, and we can't control that content, and we said, you know what, the reward doesn't outweigh the risk. With Facebook and Google advertising, that is my entire business. We are an online
social
advertising.
Responsibility and, you know, kind of ethical standards above all and forget profits, and it's totally unrealistic.
Well, I would say that there's an ethical responsibility for everyone, but are users of Facebook boycotting it? No, because they're addicted. Am I going to boycott? No, because I have a bunch of team members that I have, you know, a responsibility for them to go home and be able to feed their families, that if I cut my ads, I've got 100, you know, starving families that now, you know, have a breadwinner in the family that needs to go and find another job because of that action. Now, I believe there's a bigger probably responsibility of society and government that they should take a stand and stop this. I think that, you know, I think that they could stop live streaming and make it illegal for Facebook to live stream. It's easy for China to stop some online businesses from their market. I think that, you know, the Australian government could make a stand on how Facebook's used in our market. And I think that this is much bigger than an individual or a business, both of who, one from an income stream, are addicted to advertising on platforms like this, and others from a general society point of view.
And I think John's response just shows the passion and the complexity of this for for us as citizens and parents in this country, and us as democratic voters, as for us as users of these platforms, and us as business owners who are trying to build our businesses across these platforms as well. So you asked the question, could Facebook turn off live stream? Yeah, Facebook could turn off anything tomorrow. You kind of think about Facebook. It offers different products and services. Twitter does the same, Google does the same, and it can turn on and off these products and services. So a car company makes cars, right, and they sell them to the world. If one of those cars has a fault or a defect that's killing people, what does it do? It can recall that car. It doesn't sell it anymore, it fixes the defect, and then it puts the car out again. In the case of Facebook, it could turn off live stream tomorrow. There's nothing to prevent it from doing it. Now, what does prevent it is it doesn't have enough incentive to turn it off. And look, when I was at Facebook, I was very idealistic about the mission of Facebook, and I think in the early days everybody was, because we didn't see, or there weren't any of these ill effects, or at least we didn't see them.
This pure evil that we see now.
Exactly. In the past couple of years, not just Facebook, but online platforms in general, social media and other online, and the internet is millions of websites. It's not just Facebook and Google. There's a lot that sits outside, but there is a lot of toxic behavior that is being magnified and being sort of taken to another level on digital platforms. And I really think we've come to a point now where we've got these systemic problems in the world today that go beyond even the power of one company or one government to deal with. We've seen it with global warming, climate change the past few years. How well have we done as a society in dealing with that issue globally? I would say we give ourselves maybe an F on that one. Well, I think we're running into the same thing now with the internet and with social media. We're running into problems, I think, that are bigger than the companies themselves. And the companies themselves are doing the right thing for their shareholders, like Facebook is, which is trying to maximize the value of that business for shareholders. And that's what any company in the world should do in this capitalist system. But Facebook doesn't have an incentive to turn something off just because something like this happens in New Zealand, now, regardless of some of the smaller consequences, maybe around a few advertisers pulling their spend. I think it has to be something bigger. I think there have to be bigger penalties that are applied. I think there has to be something around how Facebook has it's like anybody. If you have children and you want them to behave in a certain way, there has to be, if you behave wrong, there's a punishment, right? And that's not because you want to punish your kids. It's because you want them to behave in the right way. And right now, I think there's no punishment for the likes of Facebook, Twitter, and Google. We need to apply some pressure
for sure.
And because there's no punishment, it's very difficult for them to be incentivized to behave.
It's got to be the higher powers that are doing that. It can't be the end users and the companies. And I can't.
Is that Scott Morrison? I mean, really?
Yeah.
Well, he's Prime Minister of our country.
He's running the country.
But
he's talking about a G20 approach. He's talking about an international response to this, that every country.
Yeah, and I think that is the right response. Okay. I think it has to be an international
response. But someone has to lead. I think that the G20 is going to be too slow to act because you've got all of these countries that have to get together and agree on it. I think it's got to be one individual. I think New Zealand's handled it very well.
New Zealand and Australia now, I think, have a moral authority to lead on this issue.
Yes, good point.
And let's not ignore that. As small as these countries are, as we are in the global scheme of things, there's a moral authority now to lead on this issue.
And actually, let's quickly listen to Jacinda Ardern. She was speaking in New Zealand Parliament today, and I mean, there's been a lot of praise for Jacinda Ardern, but she was quite strong on this particular topic today.
Ideas and language of division and hate have existed for decades, but their form of distribution, the tools of organisation, they are new. We cannot simply sit back and accept that these platforms just exist and that what is said on them is not the responsibility of the place where they are published. They are the publisher, not just the postman. There cannot be a case of all profit, no responsibility.
So that's Jacinda Ardern. And just to let people know, in terms of the advertisers that did pull, or since they've said suspended their advertising from social media, Westpac was one of the ones kind of leading the charge today. That was put out on Twitter, as most of these announcements were put out, and a couple of the big banks in New Zealand as well taking the lead. So it was Bank of New Zealand, ANZ, TSB. There's a list of about 5 of the other banks that kind of did the same thing.
That's right, but Stephen, you still see this is just not a significant amount of pressure for Facebook to actually make a move?
It's hard to say, where is this going to roll to? I mean, our global advertisers are going to start pulling their money from Facebook in significant quantities. And if that starts to happen, Facebook may start to say, hey, we need to we need to change something. But
it's too valuable.
As a commercial decision, Westpac will be getting better PR out of pulling their ads right now and better bang for their buck than what they would have been getting out of actually advertising on Facebook in the first place. So is this a moral decision, or is this a commercial decision? I want to see businesses that rely heavily on digital marketing start pulling out. Then you know they're doing it for the right moral reason. I still look at this bank decision and I think they would probably have a terrible return on investment for their social media advertising. And they can say, oh, this is actually going to do nothing to our bottom line. In fact, we're going to look like a hero here. And I'm not saying they're only doing it for a commercial reason, but I think the commercial downside of them pulling has nothing to do or in comparison with the moral and commercial upside they'll be getting from the PR that we just gave them and others will have as well.
Yeah, for sure.
It's interesting. Look, we should probably leave that conversation there for a minute because there was one other thing that we wanted to talk about.
A bit lighter.
Lighter. Well, yeah, exactly. A lot lighter. And there was a fantastic conversation. We did want to ask about this one thing because we feel like, you know, there's probably a few examples of this happening in the world. The chair of Virgin Australia has been busted flying first class to Hong Kong on Qantas. This is, of course, Virgin's arch rival for anybody who doesn't know. This is Elizabeth Bryan. She's also chair of IAG. Now, this is the whole part of the story that people are saying, well, IAG probably booked her on the flight. Still not a great look, though. John, we've got to ask, how bad of a look would it be for you if you were, let's say, shopping for appliances at one of your major competitors?
If I was shopping for a product that I had at one of my major competitors, I would have egg on my face. It just wouldn't happen. I would definitely lose sleep over it. But can I say that I've never bought a USB stick from JB Hi-Fi or a DVD back in the day? Yeah, sure, of course. When I've walked past and I've needed a product that I don't sell, there's lots of products that some of my competitors sell, although I would try and avoid it, and I would definitely avoid it for anything I sell, mainly because my business does a better job. Slightly biased in making that comment.
If you're seeing you hanging around a JB Hi-Fi in very dark sunglasses and a black cap,
I also think
mystery shopping.
Well, that's the other point of it, isn't it?
I also think that she could follow the leader, and I think that Richard Branson, the last time that he flew on a competitor airline, he actually did it in cross-dress. So he wore a dress and was a stewardess. So maybe she could have donned the three-piece suit or something and done it in disguise.
You give her a pass.
Well, look, there may be extenuating circumstances here. She had to get there by a certain time, and there was no Qantas flight.
And the other execs were on that same flight.
But I think the look isn't good. I once worked for a beer company years ago, and all of us as senior leaders in that business, we wouldn't be caught dead with a competitor's product in our hand. And the reason was not just the look, but it was just, hey, we're being paid good money to build this brand. That's what we're here for. And we don't want customers and investors and shareholders seeing us holding somebody else's product. We should be supporting our product in everything that we do. And I think there's something to be said about that. If you really, particularly if you get more senior in a business and you're paid well, I think you really should support that product or that service and everything that you do.
Because you believe in it.
Because you believe in it and because others are working their tails off to support the business that you are supposedly the leader of.
Do you think that you could argue, though, that you need to do your research? You need to just test to make sure that beer isn't absolutely crazy.
We can ask the question: was she doing research? And actually, I think the more beneficial research would be riding the back of the plane, not the front.
Yes, exactly.
I think you'd learn a lot more when you're sitting back in row 47.
What are you researching if you're in someone else's first class and your brand doesn't even have a first class?
That was the other point. There wasn't a comparable product. So, like your JB Hi-Fi example, I think we give her a pass this time. But points well taken. Hey, thank you so much, Steve and Sheila, John Winning.
Thank you.
Great to have you both on.